Very good afternoon, friends. Post-lunch sessions are very difficult to start in time and be very difficult to keep the audience engaged. As you can understand, I'm not a technocrat that way. I'm a bureaucrat, and of course I've been involved in multiple projects, multiple IT projects. Earlier used to be IT secretary in undivided Andhra Pradesh, and what I'll try and do is, as I understand the audience here is more of people from the business side, try and give you a perspective into what's happening and what it requires to create what Mr. Prasad was talking about, the Digital India program that's there. With my personal experience of having handled various IT projects in Andhra Pradesh, as well as now in Government of India and the Ministry of Road Transport and Highways, when you talk of a Digital India, it's not just about one aspect. It's a confluence of factors which actually determine how you create a digital economy or how you create a digital ecosystem for a nation. I've used it in some other occasions, but I understand possibly you may be new to it. I've actually propounded a framework which leads us to have an easy understanding of what it requires to create a digital ecosystem. And these days it's a kind of a fad to use alliterations and acronyms. So I have my own alliteration. I call it the 6I framework. 6I framework towards Digital India. And friends, let me start with the first I. To me, whatever we may talk, effectively what you require is infrastructure. The first I to me is the infrastructure. Now you may have lofty dreams and trying to connect the entire country through a digital infrastructure, but unless and until you put in the basic infrastructure in place, and the most important thing when you look at any digital economy would be the IAS, that is the connectivity, telecom connectivity, and providing internet penetration and providing internet connectivity to millions of people would always occupy the topmost list if you look at the infrastructure. And friends, in the morning, I was going through a paper which said that India is now the second biggest internet penetration country in the world after China. We've just overtaken America. Obviously, it's because of the population that we have, but good thing to note is that now the internet penetration in our country is deepening, and we are getting more and more people making use of the infrastructure which is being created. When you talk of infrastructure and the 6I framework that I was just telling you, what would be very important is there are a lot of telcos around here. Apparently this session is also about the telecom infrastructure. So the most important thing which I think is going to play a huge role would be the affordability and value for money. Now it's one thing to provide infrastructure in a country like ours, but with still an economy which is in a developing stage where people would be looking at value for money and affordability, I think that would really drive the telcos and the competitiveness involved in the process of distributing internet, as well as providing them easy access to internet in the remote and the far-flung areas. When you talk about the first I, that is infrastructure, one more factor that's going to play a huge role would be this whole debate which is raging in our country about net neutrality. With the TRI consultation paper out, it would be important for us to ensure that internet remains an completely what you call an open source medium, and nobody should have the control and the governance of internet if within our own country should be completely democratic and open for all. Friends, if this I, infrastructure, was the first I, to me the second I is is what Mr. Prasad also mentioned, is about the instruments. Now, you may have infrastructure, you may have digital highways, you may have broadband lines, you may have optical fiber lines being taken into every panchayat. But effectively, what you will be requiring is the electronics hardware ecosystem. And it's a fact that there was a study which said that at the rate at which we are moving and growing, by 2020, electronics hardware would be the single biggest component in our import list and would be a major outflow in terms of our foreign exchange. And possibly with the oil prices going down, maybe it's not going to be 2020, it might be even further up. Friends, you would all agree that 95% of all our electronic import requirement are now being met through imports. And for a country of this size to grow, it will be important that we have indigenous capabilities. Of course, we have lost that particular race in terms of the fact that globally in the world there are huge capacities built in. Even though we might try and encourage indigenous competition or indigenous production, but effectively we'll have to figure out some method to indigenize and to bring in the electronic hardware's capabilities. The inverted duty structure which somebody was referring to, I understand that some corrections have now been made, and possibly that is going to ensure that the electronic hardware picks up. There are a lot of incentives also which have now been lined up in the new policy, both for capital as well as with the usage within the country, and hopefully the second I of instruments might become very important. Another aspect which will going to drive this I is also going to be the Internet of Things. As you understand, there's a lot of talk about smart cities, and when you talk of smart cities, the IoT devices are going to play a huge role, and I'm sure that will also open up huge opportunities as well as challenges, because again, many of those items may come in from outside. So instruments form part of the second I. The third I that I always use is the instrumentalities. Now, you may have infrastructure, you may have instruments, but effectively, even if you have a device in your hand, what can you do if you don't have applications on it? The instrumentalities, to my mind, is a software part. Now, when I talk of instrumentalities and the dream of digital India and being a bureaucrat myself, I look at e-governance applications to be the major driver. Because still in our country there's a lot of regulation. You require citizens have a huge interface with the government. So you need to have e-governance applications. And within that also you have the e-business applications, education applications, medicine applications. All these applications are going to drive this instrumentalities part. Very happy now that you have the world's one of the biggest biometric databases, and good that Parliament has also cleared the bill to make use of Aadhaar as one of the common identifiers within the country. And this trinity of Jan Dhan accounts, Aadhaar and mobiles, very favorably called as JAM, I think this is going to be one instrumentality which is going to help us take this dream forward. So instrumentalities to my mind forms the third I. If you look at the fourth I, it's the involvement. Now again, needless to say that even if you have the infrastructure, instruments, instrumentalities, for a country of this size with more than 1 billion people, you need to have citizens getting involved. The participation, e-participation of the citizens is going to be very important, especially in the context of the fact that we are a huge country, we are a very diverse country, and therefore the challenges are also going to be manifold. And one good thing which has actually happened now is, to an extent, this whole concept of digital literacy has undergone a paradigm shift. 5 years back, we always used to consider somebody who can operate a laptop to be digitally literate. But now with mobile phones and the penetration that's happening, to a very large extent, the whole paradigm has changed. I recall a couple of years back, I used to consider my mother to be digitally illiterate. But today, I can say proudly that she is digitally literate because she is able to make use of a WhatsApp, and she is able to send me photographs. I am able to send her photographs. I am able to connect with her digitally. So to that extent, this whole transformation is happening, And to my mind, the digital involvement of the citizens is going to be becoming a real thing with this fourth aspect. The fifth, to me, is very important, are the institutions. Now again, if you look at all the four independently, even if the four are there, unless you have institutions, you will not be able to sustain momentum and initiatives. I have been part of many e-governance initiatives all my career, and I have realized that at times, moment the promoter is out, moment the champion is out, the projects flounder and the projects do not achieve their desired objectives, primarily because they have not been taken down to the last level and the institutions were not created. When we talk of government, I always think that within our own systems, we need to have a concept of chief information officers, just as we have chief finance officers, chief accounts officers, and in the industry, you find this kind of a notion of chief technology officer, but within the government, you need to have a chief information officer who is going to create that institutional backup which is required for such programs. The last I, to me, are the investments. Now, you may talk about all the 5 I's, but effectively the investment I is also going to be a huge role to play. Now, within the government, you may look at public-private partnerships or you may look at direct public funding, but effectively, you need to create proper revenue models, because it's the revenue models which are going to bring in investment, revenue models which are going to drive in investment, and it's a revenue model which is going to bring in public-private partnerships. So friends, I understand that we have to weave all these 6 I's together if you look at this framework. This framework was propounded by me in the National E-Governance Conference with the Government of India a couple of years back. And I realized effectively that this is a very exhaustive framework which gives us a complete overall understanding of how to achieve digital economy. And fundamentally, if you have this framework and put into practice certain thumb rules, which to my mind are number one thumb rule is that technology is now the least of our concerns. Now, we had a presentation from the industry. You have 100 such examples, case studies which are around, and you would all agree that technology has become the least of our concerns. It's a driver, it's a guy who can make use of the technology, who can actually change the ecosystem and bring in benefits for the common people. And the last and the foremost and the most important one, which I think within the government, is this whole problem of silos. Prime Minister keeps talking about this, that we in the government do not work as monolithic government. We all work as our own independent departmental heads, and we all live in our own silos. It's important that when you look at the business of government, we look at ourselves as one government and we don't get into these silos. Because as bureaucrats, we are very close to protecting our turfs. And unless we break those silos and break those turfs, the benefits are not going to be coming to our way. Last but not the least, e-governance or digital economy dream is always going to be a process of evolution. You can't say that we have, by 2017, if we achieve all this, it's all done, because you will realize that by that time, the whole concept of technology would change. And possibly we'll have to do a midterm appraisal and figure out that, look, when we thought that our milestone was here, effectively the milestone has been shifted there. So this is all going to happen because this is how this industry plays out. This is how this industry has been evolving. The technology is disruptive, and we got to understand that particular aspect and take that in our stride. And to my, if I do this, we will be able to achieve this whole dream of digital India. Thanks to the organizers for giving me this opportunity. And because of paucity of time, I would have to leave a little bit early. But I'm very happy that you have a lot of people from industry deliberating on important aspects that concern the common man and all of us. Thank you very much.